Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we are talking some early NFBC ADP. We got John Fish and Zack Waxman here, two people I associate with early drafting, but I know Fish has some bigger fish to fry right now, both on the football and the basketball side of things.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us, James. Appreciate it. I look forward to this pod every year, just breaking down the early draft boards and for all of us maniacs out there that are drafting early. But yeah, I'm doing a little bit different this year. I'm not doing as many baseball early on. I did a super in basketball, and then I did more football than I ever would have imagined. So I got to kind of focus in a little bit on those before I really dive heavy into the baseball drafts.
Well, I respect that a ton about you, that you're just a degenerate that just kind of goes where the action is, goes where it's hottest. I really respect that. So, Zach, how many non-fab leagues did you do last year? So, DCs, gladiators, etc.
Yeah, I maxed out the gladiator contest, so 50 of those, and it's probably around 30 draft champions. And I think I did 5 50s because I'm a fish. I did the 50, like the low stakes ones.
Yeah, I love the 50s.
Yeah, they're fun.
What about you, Fish?
Yeah, last year I did 20 gladiators and 16 DCs, and I'm going to look forward to doing some more gladiators this year. I don't know how many I'm going to get to. It's kind of just who knows. Oh, it seems like a good night to draft, so I'll just hop in. But I'm guessing it'll be less than 20. But we like to do our Friday night calls, our Zoom calls and stuff. So we'll all pile into the gladiators then and all draft it together. So that's always a good time. So I'm looking forward to doing that. As far as DCs, I was planning on doing a lot of DCs this year, but again, I decided to do more football than I had anticipated. And then I got to pay attention to the basketball world because, doing a super, it's a $2,500 league. So I have to focus in on that. And the best way to focus in on that is by not jumping into a million baseball DCs, at least for a month or two. So I don't know how many I'm going to finish up with. I'm going to guess I'll finish up with 12 to 15 DCs this year.
We start you. This is maybe the first year about this significant amount. What's your approach to the very first?
Your audio is messing up a little bit, James. I can't.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go. Now you're back. Okay.
Zach. So I was asking Zach. You got me, Fish? Zach, you got me?
Yep.
All right. I can't hear Zach.
I can't hear you either, Zach.
Or Zach, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I can hear you now. How's my audio? Because I thought it was me that was messing up, but
no, I think you were just muted.
Okay, no, I couldn't hear you for a second, but yeah, no, I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, so yeah, so when you're doing these early drafts and you're involved with setting the ADP, if you're in 3 of the first 4 drafts or 3 of the first 5 drafts or whatever, when it comes to a player you really like, you're not really sure where the ADP is going to settle. What's your approach in those early drafts where it might be beneficial to you to not have the ADP start in a higher spot, but you also don't want to just wait and not get those guys?
Yeah. I don't want to Wyatt Langford like you did last year, James.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. But no, I'm going to be doing like 50 draft champions leagues, obviously. So I'm not gonna. I don't want to set. I don't want to. I'm not going to be reaching on anyone. If I think there's a player that's maybe just going way too late, I'm going to keep drafting that player. But no, I'm not going to be reaching on anyone, even if I think they're my guy. I'm not pushing anyone up in these early drafts because I know that I'm in. Right now, I'm in 3 of them. I've done 5 total so far. That's a pretty representative sample of the ADP so far. That's 5 drafts of the 10 or 12 that are going to be done by the time ADP's out. That's if I like a player and I'm pushing him up to round 30 and he might not be drafted, that's kind of dumb for me because it does. These early drafts do dictate the ADP more than people might realize.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not even something I thought that much about in prior years. And then the Wyatt Langford example, I mean, that's obviously a very good example. Just sort of, I think I took him in my first DC of the year. I remember exactly where I was. I
remember that.
And I just kind of took him where I was like, well, this is where he should go. But I didn't really think at all about the sort of me taking him there, sort of anchoring his ADP in a way. And so this year I sort of maybe shied away more from those players with less big league track record, especially in rounds, sort of top 18, 20 rounds of the draft. After that, I mean, the players are pretty bad anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that's something I hadn't honestly let slip into the way I drafted DCs until this year. So that's kind of why I wanted to ask you guys.
Duly noted, because I've been in 2 drafts with you, and the early drafts, they do anchor is a good word. They do anchor the ADP a lot, and in particular, DiPietro's meatball draft, that one is public, so people see that. I'm particularly careful there not to push anyone. I'm not reaching on any players in that draft because I know it's public, and I know that it's going to be a highly representative sample of the ADP that gets imported when the site flips.
Fish, what do you think about that? You've done 2 DCs.
Fish doesn't care.
You're just getting as many innings as you can in the first 20 rounds.
I mean, listen, I get my guys in every draft that I'm in, right? If there's a guy I like and I like him in a certain spot, I'll take him in every draft. I don't need to diversify or any of that kind of stuff. But I will say this, guys that I knew that were going to shoot up the board, like Jackson Chourio, Jaron Duran, I wanted to see where those guys would, I wouldn't be the one to take them in the first draft. When you do a lot of high volume and a lot of drafts, there's no reason to take a guy early in an early draft. Let the ADP, let's see where he's going to land, and then you can make your game plan as draft season goes along. But I go boring a lot of times. Just guys that you would expect, okay, I expect this guy to go there, so I'll take him. Veterans, things like that, especially early on in drafts.
Yeah, I don't know what my reasoning was at the time, but in the meatball draft, I remember I think it was 3rd round, maybe I had a chance at Chourio, or maybe it was late 2nd round or whatever, and I was just I'm not taking Chourio in this draft, even though I know he's definitely a 2nd rounder. I just kind of wanted to see where he went in that draft.
Yeah, you're saying this on a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do 5 or 6 DCs.
I get it. Yeah, no, I agree. I was the same way. I'm not going to push him up because I don't know where he's going to land. You never know what the market's going to dictate. So no, I'm just joking with you. I'm joking around, but I'm agreeing with you. I had a chance at him too, and I passed on him.
But it's also there is the aspect that was mid-August, and he could have had a cold 6 weeks. He had a hot 6 weeks to finish it out. But yeah, I mean, it did. I called it out on the live pod that was going to be his max. But yeah, I mean, it's just those early drafts, the young, exciting player. I've done a lot in the past where I just take guys where I want to take them, but this is the first year where I just kind of wanted to sort of let the early ADP, the very first 5 drafts worth of ADP or whatever, kind of come out without me playing a heavy hand in some of the where certain guys fell on that first run of ADP.
Well, you talk about playing ADP chicken. Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. And it goes both ways. Like with Churio, that like we I think we all were playing ADP chicken with him, and I think cat's out of the bag now. But I think it goes both ways because I've been in a few of the early drafts and I've seen just people don't know where players are going to fall out with their ADP. And I'll throw out Andrew Painter as an example.
Yeah.
Like in the couple I've been going, the couple drafts I've been in, I've seen him going in round 16, and I've fallen into that trap myself where I have taken him that early. And I think you have questions on the agenda about this, of like the worst, some of the biggest reaches in the top 200. Like that could be one of them. I think sometimes you see outliers in these early drafts, and you want to be ahead of the curve, and in that early draft. Churio was a nice value relative to what his ADP is going to be, but you're going to have the opposite effect. People not knowing what the market's going to dictate. And I think Painter is another example of that. I've seen him go early. Like I'm sort of repeating myself, but I think seen him going around 16 twice, and that's going to be early. Like you see where Skeens went last year. Skeens, if I remember correctly, like he was going around 22 to 25-ish, I think, throughout the DC season. And there's no reason why Painter should be like, you look at, if you're comparing last year to this year, there's no reason why he should be ahead of where Skeens was. I guess that's hindsight because you didn't know Skeens was going to be up so early, but
he's going there because of what Skeens did. Like
exactly,
people are looking for this year's Skeens, which isn't.
We're creatures of recency bias in these DCs. It's like people want to analyze these and say, oh, okay, what happened last year? The successful teams like drafted catchers in rounds. You got your 2 catchers in rounds, this round and this round. These rookies went this way. You drafted injured pitchers X, and it's so much predicated on what happened last year. And really, it's just like I think we're trying to overanalyze it and say, okay, what should be the composition of your draft champions team? And it's really just a lot of recency bias in terms of what happened last year. And people want to find this year's Skeens. Last year they wanted to find last year's Strider. So it's just it's like I don't know. Is it roster composition or is it player analysis? That's what it comes down to.
So Fish, what type of players are you more likely to sort of have heavy exposure to? If you're doing say 30 DCs, like what type of player might you end up with? I don't know, 10 shares of. Is there a certain archetype, like a mid-round, like a 28 to 30 round pitcher, or just like a prospect you really like that's going kind of later? Like what type of players are you willing to really load up on?
So this past year, I had a ton of like Stephen Kwan. I thought he was going way too late. So I loaded up on him. And then, it's his late batting average runs. So I loaded up on him. So I made sure that I had, probably about 90% of the time, I had either Max Muncy with him or Schwarber with him. Because I just felt like their skill set together goes perfect. And especially Muncy was going so late as well. Obviously, Muncy got hurt, but Schwarber was another example. He was going too late. I thought, so getting him and Quan together was fantastic, and that actually worked out this year. But every year, the type of player I'm going to always have the most shares of is the late, super late, old, like save spec guy. So a few years ago, it was Bard, Daniel Bard. I had a ridiculous amount of shares of Daniel Bard. He's always going like in the mid to late 40s. obviously you don't ever want to have a Colorado closer, but I think it was, Bud Black came out and said he wanted his closer to be somebody who threw hard. And if you looked at the rest of the relievers, a lot of them did not throw hard.
It's so sad that you were able to just use that quote as like a way to narrow it down.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to let's go. Let's just load up on Bard, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's no big deal. It's the mid to late 40s. This past year, it was Kirby Yates and Hector Neris. I had a lot of those two guys. It's just the old, boring vet who has closer experience. So this year, I can already tell you who it's going to be because I've already tweeted it out. It's going to be Blake Trinan. The guy's been ridiculous, like every year of his career. He's got closing experience. He's old, and he's going to be a free agent. So it's going to be a guy that I have a ton of shares of this year. And I noticed that his ADP is like around 35 or something. And I took him in the 30th and 31st in my two drafts that I did. So looks like I'm ahead of the curve already. So hopefully his ADP stays in around 35. I might have 100% shares.
Does that only apply to old closers who are good, or would you be in on like a Paul Sewald or Jordan Romano?
Yeah,
Liam Hendricks.
But those I don't know exactly what their ADP is, but it seems like those are the types of guys that go earlier. But
like really like a real discounted old closer.
Yeah. So I mean, just the way I draft, I like to get one sure closer in DCs, and then I like to play the closer roulette or whatever you want to call it in the 30 through 50. I'll grab 3 or 4 guys that I think have a chance to get saves and kind of go from there. And it's worked for the last few years, so it doesn't mean it's going to work again. But I just feel like that's instead of, I know you guys are always taking guys I've never even heard of. I'm taking these old, like, seasoned vet closers, or, that have closing experience, not necessarily are closers, but have the experience. And the other thing is, if they're a free agent, right? That's a huge thing if they're a free agent, because we see closers come out of nowhere all the time. And all these teams sign anybody they can sign, whatever kind of deals, 1-year deals, 2-year deals. You can get these guys for cheap. So anybody who has closing experience, managers seem to like that. So that's generally why
there's a lot of free agent former closers this winter. It's like guys that could be, like you got like Tanner Scott, Jeff Hoffman, like those are guys that I think are getting drafted as probably top 30 relievers, but they could easily just be signed somewhere to be the 8th inning guy.
Saw it last year with Robert Stevenson. That didn't work out too well.
Right.
But Fish, you've been always I've jacked with you a lot. You've always been very good at picking out some of the late closers. I remember, was it 1 or 2 years ago in our meatball draft where you took, I remember your round 49 and 50 picks were Carlos Estevez and Rick Poundstone.
Yeah. And guess what? Carlos Estevez dominated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they combined for like 35 saves. Yeah,
you got to listen. Rick Poundstone is drafted for team camaraderie. All right, so I had to get some good team spirit in there. So,
Zach, what about you? You got a archetype of player you have a lot of exposure to?
Not an archetype. I would just like, to be simple, I'd say it's just undervalued players in these DCs. Players that I think are undervalued. Last year for me, it was Jackson Merrill. I'll brag a bit. I had close to 70% ownership of Jackson Merrill in DCs when he was going in rounds 35 to 40. I think in the first couple, I was taking him in round 30, and I sort of felt out the ADP because the reason why I was into him last year was because they talked about him being up late in 2023. Like there was potential of him being called up even the year before. And just looking at his profile and watching the video, I'm like, I like this guy. This guy looks like he's good. He's got sort of underrated power. Like, just watched video of him, and he was just hitting balls really far and hard. And it just looked like he was making really good contact. So I liked him. So I played the game where I'm like, okay, I sort of played chicken as the draft went on, and I realized like this guy is his sweet spot. Went from round 30 for me down up to round 38. So I actually was taking him later and later and later as the drafts went on. And I ended up with around 70% of him. The pitching side of that was Ty Madden for the Tigers, which didn't work out. really at all. It didn't work out as well as Merrill. Merrill was awesome. He saved me because I drafted early. I had a ton of story and stuff like that. But he didn't work out. But I looked at the Tigers and I said, just looking at trends and seeing how they promoted Mize and Skubal after so many innings of Double-A, and I'm thinking him and Job were good picks because just because of the innings they needed to accumulate in Double-A. But Job and Madden didn't work out for me last year, but Merrill did. So just those were examples of how it worked last year. There could be, it doesn't have to be those reasons again this year. Just players that I think are undervalued, and there are players that I'm noticing this year that are just completely undervalued and not reaching up. I'm trying to not really take them early this year yet, and trying to let their ADP, like I said before, sort of shake out later, and then as I enter more drafts, I know where I sort of need to target them.
Fish, I want to like piggyback off of that and just sort of that whole idea of, well, first of all, really good call on Jackson Merrill, Zach. I was not even close to right on that one. But like just that whole idea of you coming in on a guy in round 30 and then realizing that in future drafts you could wait till round 38, like has that, because that's already happened to me a couple times this year with guys where it's just like I'm on the clock already again, and this guy I took 5 rounds earlier in this other draft is still here for me, and then it's just kind of like, well, do I just keep waiting? Do I diversify? Do I just gobble up the value? Like do you ever second guess yourself when you like see a guy that you took in one draft in round 30 is like sitting there in round 36 in the next draft?
Yeah, like I know I've screwed up in multiple drafts. It doesn't even have to be the late rounds. Like I've seen, like in our meatball draft, I took Christian Encarnacion Strand way too early. I took McClanahan too early, just based on where the market's going to be, and that's just looking at other drafts. And I'm tracking the 3 or 5 drafts that I've been in or are currently ongoing, and I have an ADP. I feel like I have an advantage because I have an ADP of 5 or 6 drafts based on my drafts and the ones that I've imported off of the website that I know have been complete. And I'm looking at the completed drafts that I've not been in, because I've been in like half the drafts that are either in progress or that I see completed the site. And I'm looking at the players that I'm sort of in on. I'm like, one of the guys, I'm like, didn't even get I took him early, like not early, but like in the 30s, and didn't even get drafted in some of the other drafts. So I'm like, okay, well, that's how I know. I'm like, I can play some chicken with this guy, and before the ADP gets too solidified, I'm going to let him sort of fall, and that's what I've been doing, and I've been getting him later and later and later.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely depends how many drafts you're going to end up doing, but I do have that sort of, especially because in these early drafts, I feel like every time I'm on the clock, maybe until round 47 or 48 of a DC, there's multiple players I really want. So when it's just, I see a guy slipping that I like, it's just tempting to diversify, I guess. But I do fewer drafts than you do. So I don't know. I guess when you hit on a Jackson Merrill at 70% exposure, plenty of reason to keep at it. So I came up with some themes from just this year's draft pool, guys. I don't know. Do you guys see any out there? Like I thought I mentioned this earlier. Like I just think there's a lot of exciting potential closers. Like there's only going to be 20, 22 closers you can rely on week in, week out. But I feel like there's 40 or so in the player pool that you could talk yourself into being a top 20 closer, which I feel like is unusual. I thought there was also maybe a big gap. Actually, well, what do you guys think about that thought on the closer situation? Or am I just kind of too high on this year's setup men crew?
I think in DCs it's a fine strategy because we see the closers. I mean, not so much more like the last couple of years. It's been, a lot of the closers keep their closer role. They've been keeping the job. So I guess I haven't really looked close enough into the closers because I do take a closer early, like an elite closer early, and then I just kind of shut it down with the closers. Like I don't even pay attention to them as I draft, because then I do my strategy where I take a bunch at the end, a bunch of specs at the end. But the one thing I've really noticed in the first two drafts is first base is just not what it used to be. I mean, you think about that used to be the position to get your 300 hitter, massive power, massive RBIs, like your massive 4 category guy. And I'm just not really seeing it this year. If you miss out on the first, 8 rounds or so, I don't know what you're going to do at first base, because if you look at like Christian Walker, Naylor, Casas, Vinny, and Bellinger, Jake Berger, like those guys are all off the board after the 8th round. So if you're without a first baseman through 8 rounds, I'm not sure what you're going to do. I mean, obviously you can get maybe like a CES, like Zach was mentioning. He's going at a decent price if you are want to pay for the bounce back. But other than that, it's ugly. I mean, do you want to start Luis or Hayes at first base? I sure don't. I don't even want to start him anywhere on my team. And I definitely don't want to start him at first base. But yeah, I don't know. That's the first thing that really stands out to me is first base is pretty weak.
Yeah. So to the gap there that Fish is talking about, like it falls off after Bellinger and Berger in the 8th round, and then it's CES, Arise, Goldie. I think I've got like 2 shares of Goldie already. But I've also been loading up on Vlad, like early 2nd round, getting Casas and Steer wherever I can. But yeah, first base, if you don't get a guy in the first 8 rounds, you're waiting another 5 rounds before you even look again.
The one guy I like for first base is late. Like if I really miss, I kind of like Yandy Diaz in the 16th round. Obviously, you're going to get the good batting average. You're probably not getting the power that we had all hoped for. It just hits too many ground balls. But I think if I really miss on first base, I think I'm probably fine settling on him in the 16th round. I think that's a pretty good price.
What I'm noticing, just being I've done in or complete 5 drafts, just to piggyback on both of those themes that you've mentioned are like probably 2 of the biggest themes that I've noticed too, because I saw your agenda and I made some notes here. Outfield and first base, it becomes atrocious after when you get to the reserve rounds. So what I'm telling myself after making the mistakes I've made in the first drafts that I've done is don't be afraid to double up on first base, or even add your 6th outfield before you even complete maybe your starting pitching staff before round 23. Because what I'm noticing after round 23, when you filled out your roster, there's nothing left there. Like for first base, you're looking at like Carlos Santana, Josh Bell. Like I don't know what these guys are going to be. Maybe some rookies as well. So it really gets bad after the reserve rounds, even maybe before that. And outfield, you didn't mention that, but it's sort of the same way. Like in the outfield, I'm looking at like when you're in after round 23, like you're looking at players you're not even sure about. I think just in general, the hitting is just more top heavy this year than it has been in the past. And when you're getting in those positions in particular, they get rough. So I don't mind even, like I said, doubling up and getting my reserve first baseman like a Mountcastle or a Vaughn in round 21 through 23 when I still have other positions like catcher open.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% with you with the first base. Like I've got Goldie and Andrew Vaughn as my corner infielders in some spots, and even in a 12 I had Goldie as the corner and Vaughn as a bench guy, just because I wanted 3 first basemen that were that decent. But outfield, actually, I didn't put that in there. But if I struggle with these early draft and holds I've been doing, it'll be because I botched outfield, but I've been sort of playing it not that way at all, really. And I've been loading up on strong side platoon outfielders in like rounds 20 through 30 and just hoping to kind of mix and match.
Who you talking about, like Max Kepler type guys?
Like Trevor Larnach, Pavin Smith,
Like those are like, I'm not like, if those are your OF 4 or 5 guys, in my opinion, like, yeah, that can work because it's all opportunity cost within your draft. But I don't want those guys as my OF 4 or 5 platoon guys. It might be less than that based on performance or where they like Kepler is the guy that I listed as an example, or even Pavin Smith. Like you don't know their teams are going to do. Like even Jake McCarthy, I've seen go in round 9 in our meatball draft, which is amazing. But I've seen him go in round 12, 13. But I don't like even their role is uncertain, and there's the platoon outfield factor.
Well, like I said, I mean, if it could definitely blow up in my face, but I've been trying to get,
Wallner,
2 to 3 of those guys. Yeah, maybe like
they're all good on paper, but like you see what happens with like the Nelson Velasquez, and you see all these players that just sort of get filtered into obscurity, and that's going to happen to some of your DCs. So
right. Yeah, I mean, you have to draft the right players, obviously.
Yeah, true.
But so you think outfield falls off more than, say like I feel like shortstop, like really.
Yes, that was another thing. Shortstop is deep for a while, but then there's a cliff at shortstop. Like it just falls off even more than out. Like in terms of, there's nothing
like
after.
Yeah. So for example, I think my third shortstop on my last couple of DCs has been like Brian Rocchio, and I even had to settle for like Zach McKinstry as my third shortstop on one DC. But I'd like to have 2 before I get to that, like Jacob Wilson, Rocchio, JP Crawford, Brooks Lee, Geraldo Perdomo group of guys. Like I want 2 that I am more confident in than those guys, because it's just, and a lot of these guys just don't hit the ball with any impact at all. So you're 100% reliant on them playing a lot to get any value out of them. So first base and shortstop, I think, are the 2 positions. Obviously, everyone does catcher a little differently, but first base and shortstop, I think, are the 2 that I want to really kind of beef up in the first 10 to 12 rounds.
Yeah, I agree with first base.
I think third base is deep. That's the position I'm okay waiting on. If you look at rounds 11 on, you have Matt Chapman, Josh Young, Eugenio Suarez has had a huge second half, so he's got to be back on the radar. I think I still like Max Muncy. Obviously, you're not going to get a good batting average, but I think he's a 3-category monster as long as he stays healthy. I think third base is the position you can kind of wait on. I agree. Load up on outfielders and get your middle infield and.
I think second base and third, just in the DCs, like I'm comfortable. Like I can find guys that like I think have a path at second and third. I agree.
There are a lot of second basemen and third basemen I like.
Yeah.
Second base is like, so third base, I always end up with like Jose Tena or Ramon Urias as my number 3 third baseman. And Tena with the Nationals, like he could steal 20 bases next year. I think he's going to play a lot. And he's going to, he could go 2020 like that. That's like in play, I think, for him. And Ramon Urias was sneakily really good with the Orioles last year. And at second base, like Will Wagner, Nick York, Michael Massey, Gavin Lux, Nick Gonzalez, like Christian Campbell, Ronnie Mauricio, just endless awesome second base options.
That's another point that I had. I don't know if it fits into what we're talking about now or like themes, but you look at like Jackson Merrill. I listed that as an example because people are creatures of recency biases. So people are going to say, who's going to be the next Jackson Merrill? And this year you see, like you listed Christian Campbell and you see Shaw. What's his name on the Cubs?
Matt Shaw.
Yeah. So these guys are creeping. I see these guys creeping up ADP. And to be honest, I wouldn't have expected them to go so high. Like I would have let them go past around 30. But at the same time, last year I had like no Paul Skeens, and like you were one of the people that were very confident that he was going to be up right away. So I'm not as in tune as someone like you is with stuff like that. So I think that people are looking to find that next Merrill. So you see guys like Christian Campbell and Shaw go up, and it's very much like a game of like, okay, when are these guys going to be up? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you on both Campbell and Shaw. I don't really have I've only taken Campbell in one of my 4 leagues. I haven't gotten any Shaw, and I took Campbell like kind of mid 400s, I think, in a 50, which felt just like worth a shot, especially in a 12-teamer. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It just, Zach, do you think it's kind of just these first 4 or 5 drafts, and then it kind of like that's the prospect's price tag, and it's hard to move it too much further down? I guess Merrill last year is a example that disproves that. But
yeah, Merrill's sort of a different. He was going way later. Yeah, I guess your question is: Are these going to be anchor prices on Campbell and Shaw?
Because there are like lots of.
I listened. Side note: I listened to your podcast with Jeff, and he was talking about what's his name, Dylan's team, and he said that he was looking at Matt Shaw in the next round, and I was in that draft actually, and I think he's drafting under Brian Slack's account, but he ended up getting sniped on.
I know he did.
He ended up getting sniped on Shaw in that draft.
He hit me up right after that podcast because he said Jeff like blew up his spot and he got sniped at him because
Jeff fucked up there, big time. You should know better.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not going to say, oh, I want this guy in next round. Come on, rookie move.
I mean, he didn't say, yeah.
Looking for someone else. Come on.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But now, people like, I think people
rightfully
really respect Dylan though, and like the fact that they know that Dylan wanted Campbell and Shaw. I think that's not good for the idea of their price tags going down.
Yeah, no, I think because this is maybe the premier podcast for NFBC, and people listen to it and they heard that and like those 2 players. That's why I listed them, because kind of cat's out of the bag on these players. Like Dylan's taking both those guys. He got Campbell. He's targeting Shaw, and then those guys were going later. Like the draft that Rob did a draft, I did a draft. I think Campbell went like in the 500s in the first draft we did, and now he's like in the 300s. It's it's like it's the sheep are being herded already, I think. So I don't know if the sheep are being led in the right direction or if they're not being led in the right direction.
Okay, well, I came up with this little gimmick here called buy, fade, or shrug. And so I'm going to say a player and where their ADP was a couple days ago and ask Fish and Zack if they would buy that player there or fade that player, or they shrug and they don't really care about the question. So Ronald Acuna has an ADP of late first round in 15-team leagues. There was that little weird piece of news from Alex Anthopoulos basically saying we're not going to tell you if they're going to be ready by April or June, and you're just going to have to deal with it. But what do you guys think? Start with you, Fish. Ronald Acuna, late first round, buy, fade, or shrug?
I'm going to shrug. I don't want to do I'm not buying. I'm not fading. But there's just so many good players around that area that I just think there's too much downside, I guess, for me to take him right now. But we'll see. As we get closer to March, if we get some more reports or whatever, I can always – I'm going to give myself an opportunity to pivot on my decision. But right this second, I'm going to fade, but I don't want to call it a fade because when I fade somebody, that's it. They're done. They're crossed off. It's no chance. So I'm not quite there yet. But right now, fade. But overall, I'll say shrug.
Wow. That's about as negative as you'll ever hear Fish about Ronald Acuna. Okay, Zach, what do you say?
I'll say fade, just because there's so many good players around that turn pick. Like if you're picking in like pick 13 through 15, there's a lot of ways you could double up there. And just like my gut feeling, it's like you see Trout hurt himself multiple times. Maybe these players, like these are 2 ACL injuries already. It's not like, obviously we know how good he is, but it's just like he's becoming injury prone.
Yeah. It's tough to pay that price to me.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to want to stop running. I've had people ask me that. I don't know how that's going to factor into the equation. But I definitely think Ronald Acuna thinks of himself as just a perennial 40-40 guy. So I'd be just more worried about the re-injury than sort of a diminished output, I guess. But yeah, it's a really, if we're talking just early second, I would be much more interested, but there's just going to be somebody really good there late first. Zach, start with you on this one. Jazz Chisholm, back of the second round. What do you think? Eligible at outfield and third base.
I like the eligibility, but I'll ask you a question. Why would you pay a ceiling price for a moron? You're paying the ceiling price for him, and he's a moron.
I mean, so he went 24-40.
Mm-hmm.
He has fewer than 75 runs in RBI. He did play.
Let's be on the Marlins, though.
Partially Marlins. Yeah, I get it. Like the stolen bases are what drives his price. But looking at the landscape of where you can find stolen bases and how many stolen bases you can find,
that's the big thing, right? Like it's
batting average. He's still not hitting.
We're still talking about like I was kind of slow playing it there, but yeah, I mean he's gonna probably hit for the exact same batting average as your roto team has. But you're taking him in the second round to not do anything to your batting average other than weigh it down a little bit. And you need the volume of the steals to pay it off. And he's only played over 125 game once, and that was this year.
Yeah, and he's batting behind Austin Wells in the lineup that he's going to be in next year. So,
yeah. What do you think, Fish?
Yeah, fade for me. I love the fact that he's eligible at third base because getting those stolen bases at third base is fantastic. But again, too many other players are on there that I like, and I don't like taking a batting average drain that early unless it's going to be somebody like Ellie who's going to, see. We just saw what to do with the stolen bases.
I know you've always been aces and bases, Fish, but I feel like now you're just aces and aces.
Well, listen, if Jazz is going towards the end of the second, that means I already have an elite, hitter in the first that's probably going to steal bases, like if I get Shohei or Witt.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, why are you taking Jazz in the second when you definitely started with a guy who's stealing a bunch of bases?
Yeah, exactly.
All
right, so buy, fade, or shrug Logan Gilbert in the early third round of 15-team draft. Fish.
This is a buy for me. Workhorse, low whip. We saw some strikeouts this year. I'm buying. He got pretty unlucky with the wins. And I know some people are nervous because he throws hard and, the injury risk or whatever when you throw that hard. But no, I'm buying Gilbert. I love the ratios again, and I think he'll have a little better luck with the wins this year.
Zach, what do you think?
I'll give this guy a shrug. I'll just give him a shrug because I like him, but the caveat that I'll use here is that he's being pushed up amongst the starting pitcher ranks. I'm not sure where Joe Arrico has him in his rankings, but I forget. But he's getting pushed up because of injuries, because of perceived injuries are already top tier pitchers getting injured, and it's really not where I'm wanting to target a starting pitcher in that third round, given the top heaviness of the hitters that I mentioned before. But I do like him. I think where he's going relative to pitchers is fine, but not really somebody that I want to target where he's going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying it. I ranked him as my number 4 starting pitcher. I'm not counting Shohei Ohtani for starting pitcher ranks, but Skeen, Skubal, Wheeler, Gilbert. That's what the ADP says. But
James, here's about the ADP. We got Arico's rankings. You got Skubal first, Skeen second, Jagrom third, Wheeler fourth, Strider fifth, Sale sixth, and Logan Gilbert seventh for Rico.
So we have 2 buys and a shrug on Logan Gilbert there. Okay. Willy Adames, Fish. I know you are a Brewers fan and get to witness a career year from Willy Adames here. What do you say? Buy, fade, or shrug middle of the 4th round?
This is a tough one. I think I'm going to fade. The stolen bases, that big of a jump in stolen bases was pretty surprising. I don't know where that came from. I mean, he's always, chipped in some stolen bases, but, to steal as many as he did, you're not going to get a good average with him. Obviously, you're going to get some good power. So I guess, maybe I would consider in the 5th round, but I don't know. 4th just seems a touch early for me.
Zach, what do you think about Willy Adames in the 4th, middle of the 4th?
I think it's good. I think it's kind of a steal to get him there, and he's a little bit underappreciated still. But you got another player that you're going to be asking about later in this that I would say, yes, it's all relative. So, I'd say, 30-20 guy. You're perceived free agent discount at a position that drops off. So I think in round 4, he's a 30-20 guy with, the batting average questionable, but I think it's a nice buy there. But I think another guy, I'd almost
I'll just go to Zach Neto, middle of the 5th.
Yeah.
Talking about, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, just to continue that, I think Willy Adames is a great buy there in the 4th. If you couldn't get Zach Neto in the 5th, I'd rather take Neto in the 5th than Adames in the 4th. I think they're both good, but Neto's 20-30 last year. Adames is 30-20, sort of inverse, but Neto, you got a lot of upside there. He's young. That offense could improve. He's got the pedigree also, and he's got a little bit better plate discipline. So I'd rather take Neto in the 5th and then Adames in the 4th. But I think they're both at the position. I think they're both good. I like them, but I'd rather the Neto.
Yeah, I certainly would as well. I'm a big fade on Adames in the 4th personally. I just don't. You mentioned the free agent discount. I think it's appropriate. I think to have a free agent discount here, and I don't think there's enough of a discount. And
I kind of agree with you there.
First year he's ever had double-digit steals, and he goes for 21. And he had 217, 2023, 238, 2022, up over 250 every year before that. But Lindor was shaky in his first year with the Mets relative to expectations. I don't think Adames is on that level. So I don't know. I would take Neto straight up over Adames, and I'm more confused as to why Corey Seager I don't understand in the 3rd, and then CJ Abrams versus Zach Neto I find as very close to a toss-up to me, and they're going 2 rounds apart. But that's not something I asked you guys about.
He's going earlier.
What's that?
Abrams is going earlier than Neto.
Yeah, Abrams is going in the middle of the 3rd, and Neto's going in the middle of the 5th.
One of the drafts that I was in, Neto went before Abrams in the 4th, and I got Abrams in the 4th, and they took. It just happened to be that one draft. But no, in terms of the averages, I agree with you there. I thought we'd get a bigger discount on Abrams because of what happened.
I did too. I really did too. I'm kind of annoyed by the. I'm kind of annoyed. And I would take Abrams over Neto. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the 2-round gap. But the one I jumped over there in between Adames and Neto, Kyle Schwarber, end of the 4th, Fish. Not an ace or a guy who's going to steal you many bases. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to buy end of the 4th, Schwarber.
Schwarber, you're buying?
I'm buying. Yeah. I mean, this is elite 3 categories, and who knows what we're going to get with the batting average. Like we got to, like, the batting average this year is fantastic for him. And, I don't know what he is for a hitter. Maybe he's more of a 240 guy, but I think he's one of the best power hitters in the game. Tons of runs, tons of RBIs, still hitting in an elite lineup. So I'm going to buy that. And I'll tell you why also I'm going to buy it, because if I'm getting him at the 4-5 turn, that means I'm starting with Witt or Ohtani, where I'm getting a ton of steals. So let me buy him there with an elite stolen base guy between Ohtani and Witt, and then 2 starting pitchers in the 2-3 turn, and then give me Schwarber and a closer, or whatever else I decide in that 5th. So I'm going to buy Schwarber at the 4-5 turn.
Man, I already gave away my vote on that. I'm fading hard on Schwarber there. I feel like I never buy Schwarber, so I can't talk, but I feel like you buy Schwarber after one of the years where he hits really low rather than after he hits really high for average. But like if you start off with that high average with like a Witt or an Ohtani, I'm just I do not like the idea of like 3 rounds later just giving it all back.
Well, I don't think you're going to draft Ohtani and Schwarber together.
That's true. I was in a draft where somebody took Ohtani, Jock, and somebody else Manzardo, maybe somebody else that was UTL.
Our first, Rob had his draft. I did a draft that was started early. We haven't imported it yet, but Najami took Ozuna and Schwarber together, which is a solid.
Yeah, you definitely got to be. I'll just for the listeners, Ohtani, Ozuna, Rooker, Schwarber, Manzardo, Jock, Andres Chaparro, Masataka Yoshida, Giancarlo Stanton, Chris Bryant, Eloy Jimenez, JD Martinez, Tyler Black, Nelson Velasquez, Lucan Baker, Stone Garrett, all UT only.
Tyler Black, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tyler
Really?
Black, UT only.
Really interesting. I did not know that. Yeah,
I think it was I think somebody paired Ohtani with Stanton, and I was just like, okay. Anyways, Wyatt Langford, middle of the 6th round, Fish, buy, fade, or shrug.
Yeah, this is a huge buy for me. I was pretty disappointed in the whole meatball draft, including myself, allowing Steve Weimer to get him at the 10-11 turn. Now, obviously, we drafted in August, and Langford went nuts in September. But that to me, that's going to be his max pick all year. And of course, we let Steve get him there. I was drafted right next to Steve, and I was going to take him.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I didn't, but I went with Yelich there. Which if Yelich comes back, I think that's going to be a steal as well. But yeah, I'm going to buy Langford in the 6th. I took Langford in the 6th already in one draft.
I think so. I passed on Langford for Semien. Bloomfield passed on Langford for Tyler Stevenson, and then you passed on him for Yelich.
Yeah, and I was taking an outfield there because I took Ian Happ as well. So it was all set up perfectly for me to take Wyatt Langford, and I went with Yelich because I don't know. To me, the reports sound fine for Yelich. Like he's going to be back and ready to go. So I think that's also going to be a steal. But I probably should have taken Langford there because I might have been able to get Langford and Yelich. But I don't know. Obviously, I have regret not taking Langford.
What do you think, Zach?
Well, I have one note under this, and it's funny that Fish mentioned his name. So for under Wyatt Langford, I just have a note saying I'll just take Ian Happ instead. What's the difference?
Shots fired. Wow.
Probably 30 steals.
30. You think there's a 30 steal difference between?
I would say 30 points of batting average would be the hope, and then maybe 15 steals.
Yeah, I mean, I think Langford is a 40 stolen base possible player. I think Happ's 10 to 15.
So
where's Langford? Where's his ADP going to settle out now that we've let Steve Weimer rob us blind again for like the 8th year in a row?
Yeah, I'll say
in multiple leagues.
But if he hadn't taken Langford there, he would have taken someone even better,
probably. Yeah.
So
yeah, probably.
Yeah, we thought he got
ADP
screwed last year. We thought he got screwed when he got Ohtani second overall. Oh, Ohtani gets hurt, Steve Weimer gets screwed. Well,
yeah. So what I was going to say before you asked where his ADP settles is, like, to me, Langford is someone I would see myself ending up with on more auction teams than draft teams, snake draft teams, just because that like 5th, 6th round range. He probably settles in the 5th round, 15 teamers, but
5th round. So that
6th
means he's
round,
going to cost like $20, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I would just rather buy him in an auction as maybe my second or maybe my like 3rd or 4th. Definitely my most expensive outfielder, 3rd or 4th most expensive.
If that's the case, I'm so out on Langford. If that's the case, if that's what he's going to cost in an auction, like $20, $22, if that's what he's going to cost, you can get a really good starting pitcher for that, and then you can fill your outfield.
So you're a fade. You're a fade if I say Langford's $20. I'm still trying to get better at the predicting the AAV numbers.
Yeah, Langford's a guy that I don't really have a good feel on where he's going to land in ADP or AAV, but if that's the case, yeah, hard pass for me.
Hard pass. Yeah, I haven't gotten him in a single snake draft yet, just because I have actually been waiting on outfield, and waiting to the point where I'm taking my first outfielder when Langford's off the board already. But I like him a lot. I think he could go 30-30.
I'll give here. I know this is off the agenda, but I'll just throw it out to you guys. Wyatt Langford or Luis? Sorry, I don't want to mistake. Lou Bob or Wyatt Langford?
Langford, like 10 times out of 10, 12 times out of 10.
Is she?
Langford.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a tough call for me because you got the injury risk. I'm not huge on Lou Bob, but I don't know. I thought it was an interesting question.
I think Lou Bob is maybe the most overdrafted guy right now. I didn't even put him on the agenda, but
interesting. I haven't got him yet, but
his AD, I should say his ADP if I'm going to say that. So
I like his skills, but yeah, just I don't know. Unless he can get traded or something, get out of the White Sox organization.
He can't stay healthy, man.
And he can't stay healthy. Yeah,
we know,
he's going 94 on average. He's going ahead of like Brian Reynolds, Seiya Suzuki, Riley Green, Lawrence Butler. I got to take all those guys over him easy. But he is going after Wyatt Langford.
Is he?
Yeah. Langford's got a 72 ADP and Robert's got a 94.
Shit. Weimer did get a huge discount on that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But it was like you have to mention what he did after that pick, though, right?
Right.
Well,
right. Yeah.
You also just have to really hope he gets injured.
No. I don't hope that.
I don't either. Now that I have a share, if I didn't have him, I'd be agreeing with you, Zach. Shout out to Dr. Dave.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, Dave is speaking my language on the Lou Bob stuff. All right, Zac Gallen at the end of the 7th round, Fish. Buy, fade, or shrub?
It seems like a good opportunity to buy because where he was going this past year, and I think he's healthy right now. But I don't know. I'm just going to shrug for now. Generally speaking, I have probably at least 3 starting pitchers by that point, so I'm probably looking elsewhere, just the way I build my teams. But it seems in my head like it's a good buying opportunity, but I'm not exactly sure. I have to look into a little bit more of them.
What do you think, Zach?
I think it's a fade. I'll do a fade on Gallen. I think the dude's on borrowed time with the swinging strike rate and the injury stuff. I know I'm becoming like an injury. I sound like an injury guy here, but like, and like he throws like 93. So like that velo window, he's like in that velo window where any slight drop can really can be super dangerous for him. So I'll fade him. I think there's that everything I just said there in combination with like the opportunity cost of what else you can get around him. There's other good pitchers there too, without all those little red flags. So I'll fade.
I agree.
All right, I'm buying. At least I was buying when I did my research. I want to make sure my research had some teeth to it. He finished really, really strong. And he usually had been logging like a ton of innings. He was down to 148 last year after being up over 210. But I believe the fastball velocity was on the rise to close the year for him, and the K rate was on the rise too. And I think it stood out to me as just a guy that's going around and a half maybe later than he might be going later. But the fact that I was the only one who thought it was a buy, maybe he's going in the right spot. All right. Who is the most outrageous good or bad ADP in the top 200, Zach?
I'll go. I don't really want to give away. I have either both ways. I don't really want to say like the good ones, but I will if you want me to. But I have a couple here that I've written down. I talked about Jackson Merrill last year. I think Jackson Merrill this year, I've seen him go at the end of the second round. I think that's outrageously bad in terms of where he's going. I don't know why. I think that's just a terrible value for him for what he produces and what else you can get around there. I think Merrill at the end of round 2 is really bad.
Fair enough. How about just toss us one outrageously good one just to satisfy people since you teased everyone like that.
Okay. You see, like I think back to like I think it was 2020 when Casey Cha was crushing it before he retired, and he was that one year he was just plucking off all these like I think it was 2021 after the short year. All these like bad performances like Altuve, Ian Happ, all these players that were like had a bad year the year before, so and had a good track record. I see Garrett Cole going in round 5, and I'm like Garrett Cole in round 5. I know there's concerns about him, and people can say that he's on the downturn, but you have like DeGrom going ahead of him, and all these other players. So I think you see him in round 5, Garrett Cole. I think that could be really good value.
Yeah, doesn't seem like that one's gonna stick there that much longer. But
I think he's gonna go up as well.
But yeah, I agree. I didn't get any Garrett Cole in my first 4 drafts, so mission unsuccessful. Fish, what do you think? Most outrageous ADP in the top 200?
Strider. I don't get it. I don't know how much time he's going to miss. I don't know how many innings he's going to have. I don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back. 6th round, no thanks. I'll have 0 shares there. One good one that I kind of do like is Joe Ryan in the 7th round. I think there were some reports that if Minnesota went deep in the playoffs, he might have been able to return. So to me, that bodes well for being ready for spring training and ready to go for the season. I know it's a shoulder injury, which can obviously be a little dangerous, but I don't know. I really like Joe Ryan. Doesn't walk anybody, like low whip. Like it's my kind of pitcher. So I do like him in round 7.
Yeah, so Strider has an ADP of 89, and Joe Ryan's got an ADP of 103 for the record.
So 89 would be what? That would be like end of 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Ryan would be later than that. So
End of seventh.
I had both of those players written down as notes in this section. One would be like Strider at first I had as a bad buy, but then I'm looking at like, okay, Tatis was like a first round pick. And then we knew he was missing that 20 games that year that he was suspended, and he was still like back end of the first. So if Strider misses, I get there's questions with the workload after the fact, but if he misses like a month or two, like should he be going in round 7 or 8? I don't know. That sort of doesn't jive. So I see both sides of that. But with Ryan, man, like I've seen him in my drafts. I think Rob took him in round 4 in our draft, the meatball draft, and I've seen him in round 6 consistently. And he was going in round 6 all through DC season last year. And he's got the shoulder thing, which we've seen what happened to Woodruff. So you're getting zero discount. You're getting. I get it. Like the reports are good, maybe, and Ryan is good, but like if he was healthy heading into the year, where would he be going? Like would he be going maybe like a 4th round pick if he was perfectly healthy and he ended the season healthy? But he's going. I've seen him. I guess you're saying round 7. I don't know, but you're getting no discount for you're getting no injury discount for it. So I'm disagreeing with you on that.
So Joe Ryan's his min is 54. Was that DiPietro?
That was probably Rob.
And then his max is 141, so it's like a gigantic range.
141. What round would that be? That would be
like mid 10th or something.
What?
Or yeah, but so
you know what the ADP you're looking at is a combination of 50s and DCs. So 50s are a difference.
Okay.
So
I agree with you. I didn't take the time to filter it out.
I don't think you can. I tried. I don't think you can because I don't think there's enough of each of them. So I think you got to if you just do the ADP right now, you get a mixed bag unless you're in the drafts.
So yeah, I don't really. I'm kind of a shrug on both Strider and Ryan. Although by me just being a shrug, it just means I'm not going to draft them. There, but
I have to admit that like, I've seen Strider in one of my drafts went round 4 ahead of DeGrom. So Strider went ahead of DeGrom in one of the drafts. I've seen him around 4, round 5. I think in our draft, Roof got him in round 8. I want to say, but in my head, maybe I just didn't really think about it. I thought he'd be going like around 15 to 20. To be honest, that's where I had him before groupthink took over for me. And here I am. I'd probably take him in round 10 if he fell because of like where his ADP is, just playing the market. But he's just going a lot higher than I would have expected.
It's definitely one of those picks where you can't complain in mid-April if there's bad news and it's like, oh my God, now he's not coming back to the All-Star break. You know, like if you're taking him this high now, you just need to not complain at all about what happens like after this fact.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you another buy, James, real quick.
Give me
No.
No
more buys. I already said it. Shane Baz.
Just do sells. Come on, you don't want to push these guys out.
No, Shane Baz, end of round 10. I mean, he was awesome to end the season, and now he's going to have a healthy off season. He's going to come back in spring training. End of round 10. Sign me up all day for that.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I've been taking a lot of Pepio. I think I've been taking Pepio right before Baz goes, and I maybe should have done Baz in one of those, but or maybe I've been overdrafting Pepio. Yeah, I guess Pepio goes after Baz. Well, whatever. Okay, you got it. You want to give any more fades, Zach, or should we move on?
Yeah, I'll give you one more fade. I'll give you Colton Cowser. I don't know where he's going, but it's way too high. Just compare him to Heston Kjerstad. Kjerstad's going like fucking 10 rounds later. Makes zero sense to me.
I agree, but I don't understand where Cowser's going. I mean,
I've seen him.
I was just telling you about all the platoon outfielders I like to draft. He might be one. But he's going.
Where's his ADP? Because he's going
in the top. Well, in this mixed ADP, he's going top 150.
top 150, right? So I have all the ADP that I have the draft that I'm in, and I think I have like 7 drafts altogether. And he fell like, I think like 4 rounds past like his max, and I still didn't take him. I don't get it.
I mean,
I
I'm
don't-
not. I don't really think this is being too dramatic, but I like Willy Abreu's going 272, and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think Willy Abreu and Colton Cowser probably do about the same thing this year.
Agree.
Okay. So this is the final question of the pod. We'll get you guys out of here. Do you have Fish? I mean, I know this is kind of where you live, Zach. So I know you got a lot of these guys you love. Do you guys have a favorite or least favorite injured or recovering pitcher you've been getting a lot of or fading?
Well, I can't get any because Zach gets them all. But no, I mean, fade almost all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like messing with the guys that are injured. Guys coming off Tommy John, but I just don't know how they're going to react. So a lot of times they're just going before I'm ready to take them. But I kind of already mentioned the guy that I do kind of like is Joe Ryan. But again, Zach's right. There is risk with taking Joe Ryan with that injury because it's the same injury that Woodruff had. So Zach is spot on with that. So. But that's the one. That's the guy that I have the most confidence in, I guess, coming back and being his usual self.
I love Joe Ryan, and he was one of my most owned players last year. I think overall, I had like I was like in 100 leagues, more than 100 leagues. And I think I had over 50% shares of Joe Ryan. I loved him, but that injury, he's my guy. I wrote down here as the guy that I don't want because he's going too high because of that injury. I wish he were getting some sort of discount for that. The other guy that I have is Yuri Perez. I've seen him go before round 30. You saw Robbie Ray and Springs go around 35 to 40 last year, just looking at the comparison. And maybe I'm a creature of recency bias that I was alluding to before. But yes, I know his surgery was a little bit earlier, so he might be back a little bit earlier. But they're going to baby him. That team is terrible. They have a starting rotation as of now. I just don't know when he comes back, like what you can expect from him. Like when you're drafting him that in round 28, potentially, like he's going to come back in July and do what? So I think there's just better shots to take there. I think he's going to be as talented as he is. I think it's just going to be so annoying, even when he doesn't in the main event, when he doesn't get drafted, then he's coming back. They're going to add him for like $300, $400. It's just going to be so annoying. I think. Can't you see it? It's going to be so annoying.
Yeah. The big kind of fly in the ointment is just how bad the team is with Uri, because they're just going to be so bad, and you probably get fewer than 5 wins, even in like a best case scenario. But I'm kind of with Fish in terms of fading most of these guys. I'll just read off the list I gave these guys really quick. Grayson Rodriguez, Joe Ryan, Spencer Strider, Shane McClanahan, Sandy Alcantara, Brandon Woodruff, Andrew Painter, Jesus Luzardo, Jose Soriano, Tyler Mahle, Tony Gonsolin, Luis Garcia, Uri Perez, Shane Bieber, Dustin May, Lucas Giolito. I've been getting a decent amount of Tony Gonsolin and Shane Bieber of these guys. Bieber had his Tommy John in April 12th. Gonsolin, I think he's kind of ready, but not ready enough to be pitching in the playoffs. But Gonsolin just goes kind of late in some of these, or at least it feels that way to me. And then Bieber, I just feel like I'm drafting 3.5 good months of a guy on a good team. Sometimes the price is right, sometimes it's not. Gonsolin's got a 435 ADP and Bieber 456. So those are my 2 kind of buys in there. You guys all good to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. 75 minutes, right where we're supposed to be. So Great job, guys. And Fish, what do we need to have go right on Sunday for you?
For the NFL?
Yeah.
or for my basketball fab since I lost Scotty Barnes. I mean, I need a lot of things to go right. I have my football teams. I have like I don't know, probably 3 or 4 teams that are completely dead, but I got about that many that are right there in contention as well. So as far as what I need to go right, I need Jordan Love to be healthy. We'll see how that goes. I just bet on his over in passing yards this last game, and of course he leaves injured, and he was going to fly over the total. But I'm not mad at all. No, I need a lot of things, but James, I appreciate you inviting us on, and it's always fun to talk a little baseball with you.
All right, great. Zach, you got anything you want to say?
No, good to catch up with you guys. Had fun. Thanks for having me on.
All right, well, happy drafting, everyone, and go get in a draft and subscribe to RotoWire, and thanks for listening.